with those exercises, if they don't work or serve you, don't do them. You don't have to do these exercises. The warm-ups should be in a way that they get you, number one, into a position where you can sing up and down your range really well. Like if you can go up and down your range and they all feel easy, so that when you go into a song, you're confident. But if you're finding that when you're singing, it's actually easy sometimes without warming up, maybe the warm-ups aren't serving you as much as you think it is. I love your setup. You've got this really nice setup already. Is it for singing or is it for something else as well?
Actually, yeah, it is for singing. I've been singing for a while, but I've been kind of doing lessons, like not like consistent lessons. I mostly just kind of take them when I can.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, once I kind of feel like I'm stuck or like something's not right, then I'll try and go for a lesson. I guess I should probably let you know this. I've had lessons with like about two other teachers before. The first one was pretty good.
Mhm.
I think the only issue is like the sessions are usually a bit like too short for what he provides. And then the second one, we kind of just sat and did vocal warm-ups. It was a 50-minute lesson. We did vocal warm-ups for most of it, which would be fine if
Yeah.
I knew what the point of each warm-up was. So I didn't really know what the point of each warm-up was, and I don't even think I was doing it right because afterwards I tried singing and I was like, okay, no, I can't sing for a few days now.
Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Okay. Well, thanks for keeping me updated because I think that's important because everyone's got their own journey, right? Well, why not tell me a bit about your voice? So, like you mentioned you've been singing for some time. What are some of the things you're noticing that you're trying to work on?
Um, so I feel like I'm not really too sure what's going on. I think the main I think my lack of strength in the abdominal muscles is probably getting to me because I find that I think I've gotten to a point where I'm fairly consistent with what I do know and what I do know that I need to practice, but it's hard to stay consistent with some things, and breath support's definitely one of them. Maybe not breath support, but like keeping my stomach expanded. Like
Mm,
sometimes I feel like I try really hard to keep my stomach expanded and it just kind of collapses on me. Like I don't
mm,
have the strength to keep it. And sometimes I even feel like when I'm doing higher notes, it's actually kind of easier to do higher notes, but then when I'm doing notes that are not that high, I strain more. And
yeah.
then the last thing is that my L's and my R's are really, really strained. And I don't know if it's just because typical North American accent, we really overemphasize our R's.
Potentially.
So I have to kind of learn to sing the R's in a way that's like still precise but not straining.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So what I'd love to do, it would be amazing to kind of hear something, like to test out your voice a bit more. Do you have a song that maybe showcases a tiny bit of this? So you mentioned that the middle notes are actually harder than the higher notes. Is there anything that you can sing to show me that?
Um, I should have thought of this. I've been trying to practice Paramore's That's What You Get.
Yep.
So, do you want me to just sing it from the beginning?
Yes. To make it easier,
Okay.
is it all right to maybe grab like a karaoke or like a track on your phone, just so I can hear it as well? Um, So maybe on like YouTube or something, play it on your phone. Just because sometimes when you play it from your computer, it actually cuts out your own voice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me let me get that out. I didn't warm up my voice today because I was a little bit busy.
That's okay.
So,
It's good to hear. I would love to hear your voice, to be honest, without warming up sometimes, because it is a better indicator of what you're doing with technique.
fair enough. Oh, sorry, so you just want me to like go ahead and just straight up sing?
Yeah, sing with like a karaoke or like the actual original as well. Either's fine.
Okay. Um, are you able to hear?
Yeah, maybe a bit quieter.
Okay. All right. Just gonna keep it here. No, sir. Well, I don't wanna be the blame, not anymore. It's your turn. So take a seat, we're settling the final score. And why do we like to hurt so much I can't decide. You have made it harder just to go on, and why? All the possibilities, well, I was wrong. That's what you get when you let your heart win. Whoa, that's what you get when you let your heart win. Whoa, I drowned all of my senses with the sound of its beating. And that's what you get when you let your heart win. Whoa. Is that enough, or do you want me to?
Yeah, okay, that's perfect. Now,
Yeah.
Miriam, tell me a bit more about how did that feel for you? Did that feel easy? Did that feel hard to do?
Actually, that felt easy. And I'm going to say one other thing. I didn't mention this, but I feel like sometimes when I'm not warming up, when I don't warm up, it's easier to sing. It's
Mm.
easier to sing in some aspects, harder to sing in others.
What do you mean by that?
So, obviously, like my voice doesn't have as much agility when I don't do warm ups,
Hmm.
but when I'm just kind of going ahead and singing without any warm ups, it's so much easier to hit higher notes.
Mm.
Like yesterday, I did some warm ups, and then the tongue tension was especially prevalent then, and the jaw tension was there. And I wasn't breathing properly throughout this, but even then, it didn't
Yeah.
sound horrible.
Well, what sort of warm-ups do you do?
So I do basically, of course, I do the lip bubbles,
Uh-huh.
um, which I don't really have any issues with. I do this head vocal warm up, or the head voice warm up, which is like, ooh, and then um, she also made me do a chest one where it's just, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then usually, um, I think what really hurts is there's this one that she did that's like supposed to be kind of like a whiny one. It's like nay nay nay, and I just don't know how to properly do it.
Oh, okay, cool. Pause there because I probably wouldn't do that for your voice. So the reason why they do those kind of exercises is that's activating a bit of twang. And so what twang does is it kind of tightens a bit of the upper part of your throat, just a bit of a tightening, right? And that usually can make it easier to get your chords to stay together. But you don't sound like you've got that problem at all. So I actually wouldn't use twang. Twang is almost like an unfinished sound. So if that's so here's the thing, right? I think you mentioned this, which is really awesome. I think all exercises should have a point. There should be a reason why you do them. And I think that's probably what I want to leave you with today. I think with those exercises, if they don't work or serve you, don't do them. You don't have to do these exercises. The warm-ups should be in a way that they get you, number one, into a position where you can sing up and down your range really well. Like if you can go up and down your range and they all feel easy so that when you go into a song, you're confident. But if you're finding that when you're singing, it's actually easy sometimes without warming up, maybe the warm-ups aren't serving you as much as you think it is. So that's one thing. If you want to talk about agility, maybe one thing you want to play around with, right? When you say agility, Miriam, is it like are you talking about runs or like being able to move runs, right?
Runs in general, and just like transitioning from notes in general, like obviously from like a lower note to a higher note.
Mm,
Um, like obviously the transition between if I'm doing a lower voice that's more chesty and then doing a higher, more mixed one can sometimes be a bit
yeah.
like when I was singing right here and this part where she goes, whoa. I mean, that's fine there, but sometimes that transition isn't always smooth.
Gotcha. Well, how about this? Because I noticed some of the scales you're doing, they are all quite clumped in terms of pitches. They kind of stay around the same area, right? Have you experimented with longer kind of scales? Like things that cover a bit more distance. So for example,
E-
like here's an example. Have you heard anything like this before?
I think that's what I was told to do with the lip bubbles. So it's kind of like it's exactly that scale where it's like
Yeah,
do mi
yeah,
so do. Yeah, you get the point.
yeah. So the ones you were doing before with the open mouth, that was like a 5-tone scale, which is fantastic, right? But they kind of do clump in the range of a fifth, so they don't cover that much that much range, right? I find that for a lot of my singers, what tends to work well is when you cover a bit more range, because then you really get the whole motion right, moving from low to high, high to low. And then when you go to singing or whatnot, you can start focusing on a specific part of the range. But if you're so focused on a specific part of the range in the warm up, sometimes it can kind of fatigue you more. So why not try this, right? Maybe not a name, but try like a neutral kind of sound, like a ma. And I want you to just go ma 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 ma.
Do you want me to just do in like a head voice or something, or
You should be able to
just
do
like
this in
a
your normal voice.
okay,
Or maybe you might
mum?
sorry, you might mix this slightly on the top note, but all of it should be pretty chesty.
Okay, all right. Ma 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 ma
Nice.
ma 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 ma.
Nice. Okay. Does that feel hard to do?
Actually, no.
Actually, no. Okay. So I would encourage you maybe if you're going to warm up your voice, right? There are some other ones that maybe cover a bit more range. For example, here's a Rossini, right? I don't know if you've heard. I'm not sure if you've heard this one before.
Oh, yes, I have done that one. I
Yeah.
usually incorporate that for my the lip bubbles.
Right. Right. I would encourage maybe test it out for this week, right? Because obviously, like, and there's no exercise that's absolute. I think what you want to try is maybe instead of warming up in like number one, I wouldn't do the nays. The nays they do encourage a bit of that kind of twangy sound, and I think depending on what sort of music you want, maybe you might add a bit of twang back in. But if you're already vocalizing so well, you're able to go up and down your range like this. I wouldn't do so much of a twang. It's just going to add a bit of unnecessary constriction. The second one I would love for you to play with is maybe even with your open mouth sounds, experiment with some longer kind of scales, because that's going to force you to go up and down, right? If you notice one of your weaknesses at the moment is being able to kind of move in and out of different parts of your range, then I think the warm up should tackle that first. That's going to give you a bit more confidence when you go into a song. But the way you're vocalizing sounds fantastic. I mean, there's not a whole lot I would change, especially the way you did it just now. I think it's just maybe you might need to start rethinking the approach on how you're doing it. That might kind of serve you a bit better.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Does this make sense?
Yeah. Like I was trying to sing some Ariana Grande songs yesterday, and apart from my inability to like really do runs efficiently, um, I was which song was I singing? I think I was like playing around with Problem, just singing it for the fun of it, and the part where she's like, "Is this the lyric? What is the lyric? I'm sorry. Let me just remember here. It's escaped my mind at like the perfect moment for some reason, where she's like, okay, I've got it here. Head in the clouds, got no weight on my shoulders. Like, that's not so hard. And
Mm,
I don't know why. I don't know if, like, it doesn't sound like, I know I'm not straining at all. I don't know if
mm.
it sounds too shouty, but I'm like, why is that so much easier for me to do than just like lower notes?
Gotcha. I think in general, to be honest, the harder notes are usually that middle part where you're learning to transition, or where you're starting to transition. I think because you can't really mess up a high note. Like if you mess up a high note, it probably doesn't come out, because you can't shout your way to some of those notes. That's pretty high. But I think the middle you can kind of get away with sometimes a bit more push than you'd like, and that's why they can get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say maybe when you with your scales, right, just continuously refining that transition area. Because I think if you can really figure out the middle notes like really well, The high notes are always going to be there. It's just an extension. But working out the middle, maybe like these kind of scales, where it forces you to kind of repeat yourself right in that middle spot of your voice. See what that does to you. Just learning to stay in there. You can even do, like, how often do you play with slides?
I usually don't do them well at all. The slides,
Let's
yeah.
can I hear it? So maybe on a ma.
Oh, never mind that one. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I thought you were like talking about like slides in a run kind of way, like doing runs in a slide.
Gotcha. More like these ones, like just sliding in and out. Like, do you do them often?
Actually, I don't.
Cool. So some like not to say like all of these are you have to do them. It's more just an idea for you. So if you're finding that those middle notes are a bit harder to tackle, it's usually the case for most people, because that's where a lot of transitions happen. But there are ways you can start tackling them. For example, learning to repeat your notes there in like some of your vocal warm-ups, learning to slide in and out of them. That's always a great sign of control. Those are some things I can think of at the moment.
Okay.
Cool.
I'll have to try those.
Yeah, I'll write these down for you. So I think a couple of things we've mentioned already is I would experiment warming up without the twangy exercises. Because usually, like when I'm working with people developing their voice, right, twang is a great way to find a mixy kind of quality or that kind of chord closure. But once you have that, you do want to back off.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's not because it's also not necessarily the prettiest of like sounds as well. So stylistically, you might add a hint of it, but not nearly as much as it's not nearly as much as that. It's a bit too much. The second thing is maybe with your warm-ups, choose some scales that cover more distance or more range. And then last but not least, right, kind of hit that middle a bit more often. You can repeat or slide your way in. This is just to make sure you really refine the control there, because as you said, yeah, your high notes are fantastic, but the middle part, as you keep getting better and better at that, it starts to maybe make you range a bit more uniform.
Okay, fair enough.
Cool. Any questions before we wrap up, Miriam?
Yeah, actually, how long can we usually sing until our voices become more fatigued? Because obviously, the more I sing throughout the day, my voice will, like right now, without having it warmed up, it feels smooth. But then later on, it kind of starts to feel like it's either thinning out or my vocal cords are just not really liking it, I guess to say. So is that like just bad technique? Is that just bad warm-ups? I mean, probably bad warm-ups, yes, but does longevity have to do with that?
Gotcha. So I'd like to tackle it from different angles. So I guess number one, there's always ways to improve your technique, right? Technique is just about how efficient can you use your voice, right? And I think the more efficient you can make it, the longer you can tend to last, right? That's one thing. The second thing is there are actually different types of fatigue. So a lot of times, sometimes when we feel that the voice is tired, it might not actually be the vocal folds themselves that are tired. Sometimes it could be the articulators, our tongue, our jaw, our lips. Those guys get tired. So because of that, all of a sudden, our voice feels tired as a whole. We're like, oh gosh, I'm off for the day. But what you can do sometimes is just stretch them out. Sometimes just doing these kind of gentle massages, massaging the jaw, the lips, that can kind of reset the fatigue of the lips. A sign of more vocal fatigue, like actual vocal folds being tired, is maybe when you feel like you have to use more air than you need to in general, or if you notice it's getting a bit croaky or maybe sometimes even hoarse. That's a bit too much. That's when the vocal folds are tired and you got to rest them. But I'm just trying to say like there are different types of fatigue. Not all fatigues mean you necessarily have to rest. Some of them is just a matter of stretching out the articulators.
Okay, that's good to know because I think that might be it.
Yeah, because I've got a lot of people who come in like, oh, after singing, my throat feels a bit tighter or like tired, but you don't have any nerve endings on your vocal folds. They actually have no feelings. So a lot of the sensations you're feeling are actually the muscles around them that are tired, and they can kind of be maneuvered and just stretched out and relaxed.
Okay, that makes sense because it's not like I can't reach higher notes or like can't reach notes. I don't want
Mm.
to take up too much of your time, but just um there's one more thing. So lower notes, sometimes when I'm singing for a long time, I definitely cannot reach lower notes.
Mm.
Like
Mm.
it's really hard. Even if I try to do like more chest exercises.
Right. Are you asking why that is the case or what to do?
I guess both. Like I said,
Both.
I don't want to take too much of your time, so you just go over
Yeah.
it.
I probably can't give you an answer on how because I probably have to experiment with your voice a bit more. But why? It's usually because when your vocal folds warm up, a bit more blood flow, they are much more pliable, and they actually all of a sudden it's easy for them to sing with the same amount of pressure. So you can sing high notes, but as a result, yes, one of maybe like a couple of notes on the bottom part of your range, it tends to be harder to hit just because your voice there's more blood flow there. Um, I think that's the best way. Just when because there's more blood flow, it's the lower notes can be harder. How low are you talking about though?
um, like notes that would normally be comfortable, like I don't really know exactly my range, but
Mm,
even notes that are like kind of within my talking voice range sometimes.
mm. That might just be technique, to be honest.
Hmm.
Because you're fantastic at the high notes, like even the middle notes are quite well done. And I think maybe it's just because you're so used to the sensations there, coming back to the lower note feelings, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's a bit different.
Makes
But since
sense.
you've been talking all day, you're quite used to that area. It's just because we're so used to it, right? We're better, we're much more equipped to do things we're familiar with. And I think it's a matter of like, as I said, maybe that kind of covering a bit more range with some open mouth sounds, it gets you familiar with the different parts of your range so that all of a sudden you're not just focused on the middle or the high.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's everything I've got for today. Thank you so much.
Cool. My pleasure.